It's the hot stove discussion after the presentation, and so we've got our coaches here who are in attendance and have participated. Some of them. So tell us a little bit about your impressions or thoughts or questions that you have about what you just saw.
I thought it was interesting that Nico and I are both one-handers most of the time. Well, pretty much all the time when I play. I know for you probably too.
Same thing.
And then how our two-hand grip and bent arms on the backhand and extension were pretty much the same. I mean, we fell into the same style of backhand.
Right.
What did you notice? Did you notice anything, Jim, when we hit our one-handed? Did you have any preconceived? What did you see there?
Well, what I saw was three different styles. But what I liked was the point where Bill brought up the player's going to make the ultimate decision, not the coach. And I think that's the most important thing that resonated with me.
It felt good that Bill actually let me make the decision, honestly, because I never hit a two-hander in competition. I'll do with it in teaching and just kind of maybe demonstrate. But now I feel like I can go back and demonstrate it better because I feel like I found my own personal style as a player on the two-hander.
Right, and I think one point that Bill brought up that was really important is that when he said, if he doesn't like it or if we're only teaching one style of backhand that doesn't necessarily fit the player that we have, we're going to lose them because they're going to get frustrated and they're going to think it's their fault. As opposed to us not just being able to put, quote unquote, our ego aside and say, okay, listen, I'm going to try something different, not just the one thing that I believe is correct, and just adapt my teaching of the technique to the player that I have.
I'm guilty of teaching a certain style of backhand and kind of defaulting to that and not kind of letting go and kind of make that relationship stronger between teaching.
My big thing is with the different styles, you're allowing some individuality with the backhands, but there's still those few key points that you have to make sure that the racket goes through and your body's making the racket do. And the styles, you can have many different styles, but on all the good two-handed backhands, you're going to have those same key points on every single one.
Right.
And I think that's something that Bill did a very good job on making sure that you guys were hitting on those points without actually having to tell you about those.
I guess my thought was I really like, I feel like the backhand is maybe the hardest stroke to kind of hit. A forehand, a lot of players, even beginners, can hit a forehand and they feel a little bit good. And then you go to the backhand and you go, well, do I do one hand? Do I do two hands? And even two hands for years, players go, my two hand, is my weakness or something. And so I like having the options that you can give a player. And also, I like the individuality where the coach was kind of guiding, but the player was discovering. And I thought, the whole progression of the lesson would be a great thing to give somebody some new insight. So.
That's another thing too, is on the two-handed backhand, you get players to play with two-handed backhands in competition, but the majority of those two-handed backhand players are still going to go to one hand when they're pulled wide and they have to slice. I don't see very many two-handed slices that are actually good shots. You can see a couple two-handed backhands that are just kind of chopping down at wood, but not that one where you can actually reach and turn your shoulders and get some extension. So it's a good mix of tools to have in your bag and be able to know what you can do and how it works.
Okay, I have a question for you guys. When we talk about outliers, because in the other discussion we had, we were talking about, okay, here's a well-known player who has a serve that's just, it's idiosyncratic and it's bad. And we were talking about, Jim brought up Monica Seles, and why don't you go off on kind of the Monica Seles kind of a thing where I remember you saying that's an interesting decision. Why don't you flesh that out?
Well, I like what Kurt said on guiding. It's not that the student, regardless of their age, but especially if they're young, that they're going to make the right decision, but they're going to probably make the best decision for their talent level, where the coach guides that decision. The Monica Seles, who would ever have thought that you could be number one in the world and dominate as the world's best female player with technique that she had? And so you go back, whoever made that decision, to me, gets the Coach of the Year award, because that's a big decision to let her fly with what she had.
I think it says a lot about that coach, that particular coach who let that decision go. It says a lot about the confidence in his decision. Like, he didn't let his ego overcome the decision. He let it happen.
All right.
Guided.
Awesome. Hey guys, that was a great discussion, and I hope that you watching, got something out of that as a wrap up, and that you resonate with something that one of these fine coaches has shared, about their observations. So anyway, we'll see you in the next clip.